This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts. Only at theaters February 7th. When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the Vehicle Owner's Manual for important feature limitations and information.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. It's time for the baseball podcast with Bally MLB national writer David Brown. Look,
Hi,
everyone's excited that you're back.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's nice to be liked. I'm sure Gonzo did a nice job. You were telling me some funny little anecdotes about him stepping in, and I'm sure he made for a good change of pace and a good guest.
He did a fine job. I almost made him cry when we were talking about the Cubs have this fancy pitching machine that can mimic the exact pitches of certain major leaguers.
Huh.
And
this from the pitch lab?
I guess.
Okay.
And he was saying that the Mariners have had one for years, so it's really not as cutting edge as they said. But I asked him if they could program it to throw the Will Omen 54-foot curveball, and he almost started crying. He recoiled in terror with the memory of Will Omen. So I feel bad. I almost had a surprise for you, but I had Timmy Trumpet booked. He was going to play walk-in music for you, and he's at Citi Field tonight instead.
I saw that. I was not even terribly. I was familiar with the story of Timmy Trumpet and the song for Edwin Diaz, but I can't say that I'd ever noticed it before. I just noticed people talking about it, and I was glad that he was there in person, and it was quite a moment.
Yeah, it's a cool entrance. Casey Ignarski, who best known to Cub fans as the guy who keeps track of every Cub who's ever worn jersey numbers. He is convinced that last year, during his brief time on the North Side, that for the last few weeks he was a Cub, that Jack Peterson used that song as his walk-up music.
I mean, I can't dispute, or there's a better word for it. I can't say that that's not true.
Yeah, I think we all tried to block most of what happened last year out, so it's hard to remember if that's true or not.
So Casey Ignarski is his name?
Casey Ignarski. Yes, he wrote a book called Cubs by the Numbers with my favorite Cub blogger, Al Yellen, of which I'm sure Al has somehow screwed him out of all the royalties. He seems like a nice guy, and he has his Cubs by the Numbers page. If you want to know all the Cubs who ever wore number 20, you go to Casey's page. And it's funny because I get spoiled by it because I will go there and look up stuff.
Jerome Walton, right?
Yes, among many others. Thomas Diamond was a great number 20.
Oh, boy.
I don't know why that's the next one that popped into mind. There will be oftentimes.
What number was Bob De Niro? Was he 20?
Bob De Niro, of course. Yes, he's probably. Bob and Jerome are probably the most
well, those are the ones I got.
famous 20s of recent vintage, at least. Part of the amazing run of great center fielders the Cubs have had over the last 70 years, which is like 2 seasons and a month of those two, and a couple of years of Dexter Fowler, and not a whole lot.
I think
else.
Bobby Mercer still in center?
Yeah, I think he was. So when I flippantly on this podcast mentioned how the void and said they haven't had anybody that going back. And Mike Donahue, my Remember This Crap co-host, got very upset that I left Rick Monday out.
Of course.
And I'm like, all right, if that's what we're getting to, it's proving my point. Really? You really have to go back to like Andy Pafko. And then Andy Pafko, the Cubs moved him to third base for a while. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's very strange. I even looked up the Cubs. I think did their they do this weird thing. It's a good thing, but they don't. It's like everything else on Marquee. They don't really pull it off. I don't know if they do it every night or they do it several nights. They will like bring up a little on-screen like fun facts about a historic Cub.
Mm-hmm.
And it cracks me up when the historic Cub is like Jake Arrieta. That's like, okay, he was there last year, guys. But sometimes it's really old players. And the other day it was Kai Kyler.
Right. And
I'm like, ooh, I wonder if Kai played center. So I was looking it up. Like, he did for like parts of 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Kai, one of Harry Carey's favorite players, he used to talk about. I think he just liked to say Kai Kyler. But,
was Milt Kyler related to him, or was that just our hopes and dreams?
Milt Kyler, the old Tiger?
Yeah.
They didn't look alike.
No, but you know.
Yeah, I guess that could be possible.
It's possible. We probably would have heard more about that were it true.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Cub by the number page comes in handy, and there are times when I wish someone would make a similar one for the Bears. Mm-hmm. It's a little harder to look up, famous old, like, 87s. Tom Waddle and Kellen Davis. And
Emory Moorhead.
Ed Obradovich?
Yes. Bob Parsons, 86.
Yes.
Wendell Davis, 88.
82.
82. Who's 88? Was anybody 88?
Well, yeah, some people were 88. Pat Dunsmore. Yeah. Glenn Kozlowski.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Page.
Alan Page was 88.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure people are really excited about the baseball podcast so far. We're talking Bear numbers.
Those are, that's an interesting, you mentioned, I need you to remind me of his name again, Ignarski.
It sounds made up, doesn't it?
It does.
Casey Ignarski. Sounds like I just made the name up. Yeah.
It's funny that there's like an Ed Hardig subset. There's like...
he's one of Ed's groupies.
Right. It's good that he's passed that skill on to someone else just in case we lose that someday.
While you were gone, the Cubs had an emotional, not ceremony. They decided they were going to surprise Pat Hughes on the air.
Yes.
And so they sent creepy Crane Kenny up to the booth. And then they gave it away because the cameras zoomed in on the two of them. Although I was sure Pat was being fired on the air, which I thought, this is mean. My favorite part of it, but two favorite parts. Number one, Crane couldn't like spit it out what was going on. Mm-hmm. It's like you're there for one purpose. The other one was when he explained the selection process, how they were doing it. So what they did is they had Ed Hardig come up with 14 names. And then he said then we had our 5 Hall of Famers vote on it. And it's like, okay, well, you've got more than, I assume living, right? You didn't have the dead ones vote. It's Chicago, but I don't think you had the dead ones vote. And you got more than 5 living ones. I think they just mean like the ones who come to stuff. So I think they mean Billy Williams, Ryan Sandberg, Fergie Jenkins, now Lee Smith, and Andre Dawson. So not Dennis Eckersley, not Greg Maddux. But I just thought it was weird. It's like, okay, so why don't you just have Ed pick then? You're already having him do all the dirty work. Just let him pick. And out of those 14 names, they picked 3 guys. So here it is, this Hall of Fame that they have under in a tunnel somewhere under the bleachers. And it's like, it's time to start catching up. And, you got a lot of people to put in this thing. It's like, well, for this year, how could we do better than Jose Cardinal, Buck O'Neill, and Pat Hughes?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's like, well, three guys deserve it, but there's a lot of other guys that aren't in that you probably could put in. It's just odd. Everything they do is odd.
And this is a room under the stands now?
Yeah, it's not even a room. It's the hall. They took hall like literally. It's like a hallway.
Right.
They're like, no, it's got to be a hall. This is a hall. This is a room. Like, no, it can be. Only the Cubs. They are been around since 1876 in some shape or form. They got a crap load of Hall of Famers. They've won 20-some pennants and 3 World Series. And they will build a 40,000 square foot sports book and cram that on the side of the building that no one has asked for except for DraftKings. But when it comes to honoring the players, it's like, well, we could tape some shit to the wall in the hallway. All right, let's do that.
Right. Have you been up to the? I don't know what it looks like now, but for a time they had kind of a nice wall in the it's not called the eating room, but the cafeteria. That's not what it is either. But the media place,
Dave, you'll be shocked to know I'm not allowed in those.
I mean, not even like a
places.
Special occasion.
No.
Well, anyway, they had it was a nice room where they had all the former media types and announcers, and they had not plaques, but big, nice pictures. And anyway, I thought it was tastefully done. And that's what I envisioned for this hallway of fame. I've
been in the Miller Park one.
Yes,
I've eaten in that media room, and I've been in the press box, and I was in Bob's booth.
Oh wow!
Not with Bob. But yeah, the Cubs are like, no, we don't like you. You don't get to come to any of this stuff.
I can see that.
I can't. I don't know what I did. I don't know what I did to offend them. I know what they've done to offend me. I don't know what I ever did to offend them. So speaking of the Cubs, in a roundabout way, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They're not of Anaheim anymore, right? They're officially just the Los Angeles Angels.
Well, there's official, and then there's what they say.
Right, because they had to promise Anaheim, right? That the name, like,
as part of the funding for the stadium improvements. Yeah, but I don't know what the statute of limitations was on that, or how much they got in writing, or what. But I still think it's somewhat, in the fine print, the lawyers, it's of Anaheim. I still think that's there, but nobody says it.
Well, when I buy them, and if you want a piece, I can cut you a deal. When I buy them, we're going back to the. I think we're going to go back to the California Angels.
Yeah, that's how I grew up.
We're going to bring Brian Downing back, and he's going to play left field.
First thing that comes to mind always is Brian Downing.
We can't bring Donnie Moore back, so we'll bring Brian Downing back instead.
Maybe like with a Harry hologram, we can bring a Donnie Moore hologram.
Yeah. We'll get the guy who did the Tupac one. He's like, no, what am I doing? Don't worry about it. What's this guy best known for? You don't want to know.
No.
Two things he's known for, both bad. One a lot worse than the other. But so there, Arte Moreno has decided he's going to sell, which is surprising to me, but he's going to sell.
He's owned it for about 20 years.
Yeah. Some guy on Twitter, and those are always the best kind of guys. It was like, what a terrible, has there been a worse investment? It's like, yeah, it's a terrible investment. He bought the team for $185 million, and he's going to sell it for $2 billion. Oh, it's an awful investment. I think what the guy meant was, for the amount of money he's poured into like payroll, to only get the one World Series out of it. But it's like, you didn't phrase that correctly.
Well, and he came in after that anyway. The purchase didn't go through until
that's right. He didn't own
spring after they had won the World Series.
Yeah. So he got nothing.
No,
except for $1.8 billion.
Right. They made the playoffs a couple times. Got swept by the Royals. Was I there for that? Something like that. So, yeah, Mike Trout's been in about 4 playoff games since 2011.
So people are making the famously recently the Nationals traded Juan Soto because they were being sold. And on the face of it, doesn't make any sense. It's like, why would you trade your most valuable player asset?
Right.
Wouldn't it behoove you to keep that guy and make prospective buyers like, ooh, we get Juan Soto too?
Right.
The way it was explained was, especially with the Juan, well, it'll apply to Shohei too. But with Juan, it's like, okay, he just turned down a huge contract. It's no safe bet he's going to stay. Which could mean that you're the new owner and you buy the team and you get everybody all excited. And the first thing you do then is you trade the franchise cornerstone. Right. Wouldn't you rather come in afterwards and be like, I can't believe they traded that guy. I would have done that.
Right.
And it's already done for you. And so Shohei has one more year after this. And then you've got to pony up and sign him again. Or if you don't, you lose him for, you get a draft pick, just like the Cubs and Wilson Contreras. You get like the 70th pick in the draft. It'd be great. So there's all this scuttlebutt that the Angels are going to have to trade Shohei. And John Paul Morosi was on the Score, and he said it wouldn't surprise him. I love the phrase. It wouldn't surprise me if the Cubs don't trade for Shohei Ohtani. And so you would have thought that's a mild, not really going out on a limb to say it wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
You wouldn't knock me over with a feather.
He's being safe, yes.
But you would have thought the Cub fans would be like, oh, awesome. No, the initial reaction was, oh, sure, we finally built our farm system up, and now we're just going to give it away for this guy.
Give it away.
It was right, because all those guys are going to turn out great, and B, it's such a terrible idea to pay one guy to be your ace and your 40 home run DH. It's like you realize you're trading for 2 guys, right? Not one. You're getting 2. It's one guy, but he does 2 things.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the other players in Major League Baseball in the last 100 years who've done as much hitting and pitching as Shohei Ohtani. I'm coming up kind of short.
I don't know if you saw Franmil Reyes pitch for the Cubs last week.
Oh, did he? Wow, that's put him to work.
I'm trying to get a nickname to catch on for him. I think people think it's derogatory, but I like Franmil. I don't know if it's going to work out great, but I like him. And the Big Papi, the lazy Big Papi comparisons happen immediately. I think we should call him Big Poopy. Big Poopy came in, and Big Poopy throws like 89 miles an hour. Easy gas. He actually really looked good.
Impressed. That's why he plays right field. I was wondering why, because it's not because of his range.
Yeah, there's that thing. You go to the MLB film room where you can pretty much pull up any, and I put one together of Franmil catching fly balls and right, just my own amusement. You'd be shocked to know there's not a lot of range.
Right.
But if it gets close to him, he does catch it.
Right.
I want it.
So he's got good hands.
He's got,
soft hands.
He covers a lot of ground, just naturally. Just standing there, he covers a lot of ground, but he's not moving around much. It did seem odd that the Guardians were playing him in right. It's like maybe left. That's where I would have guessed you were going to put him.
Right.
But I guess with the big
arm,
probably
DH.
With the big arm, I guess they figured, why not? We'll put him out there. So maybe that's a better argument than how we're going to give up these precious prospects is we already got Franmil. Is Shohei really going to be that much better?
Right.
Why would we give up these guys for Shohei? Well, I'd ask you, Mr. Baseball expert, though. I think Cub fans think that in order to get Shohei, you have to give up like your 10 best prospects.
Right.
Because it's one of my favorite things is when fans either call into radio stations or go on Twitter and they suggest trades.
Right.
And there's always like 6 more guys in the trade than there would really be in real life.
Right.
Because and then we'll give him this guy, and we'll give him this guy, and we'll give him that guy. Those guys are all bad, and nobody trades 8 for 1. There's a reason for that.
Well, a good rule of thumb is probably the Soto trade. I mean, it's Soto's not no pitcher, but given his age and his abilities as a hitter, it probably would take something like what the Padres traded, and people did call that a really big haul, the biggest haul I've ever seen in a trade, and it still isn't their entire farm system, so it would hurt a little bit, but I don't want to I guarantee none of the guys that they give up individually are going to be as good as Shohei Ohtani. So to me, that's certainly a deal that you have to look at.
Yeah, so I started repeating the thing I wrote about the Juan Soto thing is you can't lose a Shohei Ohtani trade if you get Shohei.
Right.
You win the trade. You get the best player.
The worst thing that you can say about it is, wow, we gave up a lot, but we got him, and we're better for it. So that's the worst.
There's Cub fans who are like, okay, fine, we can trade for him, but we can't trade Brennan Davis, we can't trade Pete Armstrong, and we can't trade Hayden Wesneski because I'm really attached to this guy that we just got 2 weeks ago, and I've never seen pitch, and we can't give up this guy. It's like, all right, it's number one. There's the big reason the Cubs would not do it is because if you're going to trade for Shohei, you need basically assurances that you're going to sign Shohei. Yeah. And the Cubs are going to hear that number and go, oh, God, no. Oh, no. So I did a little thing in the newsletter where I added Jason Hayward and Marcus Stroman's salaries together. It's all right. You're paying $47 million for these two this year. Here's what you got. You got 3 wins, and you got Hayward hit like 205. You're probably going to pay $50 million a year for Shohei. I think he's probably going to do better than that. So you probably can't afford it because you waste that money on other players anyway. Why don't you pay it to a good one? And it'd be interesting to see how long. I mean, there's the whole thing with Shohei is, you get 2 players in one, which is great. But pitchers get hurt, and he's already been hurt once. Yeah. But then you can also look at the other side and go, yeah, but if he gets hurt as a pitcher, then you still got him as the DH. I mean, if he blew out his elbow tomorrow for good, he's still a really good hitter. Yeah. So you don't get nothing. It's not like if you sign just a pure pitcher and he gets hurt, and then you're like, well, we got nothing for that. But you kind of wonder about like how many years. Like, is he going to want a 10-year, $500 million contract? He's like the one dude who could ask for it and not everybody laugh at him. Right.
One thing that maybe his next team has going for it is that, he's probably finding this out now. You never know really what you have as an owner, as an ownership group, as a whatever until you're in it. So maybe a shorter deal with a larger amount is what, maybe a 5-year deal for, I don't know, $300 million or something. I don't even know what that adds up to, but something along those lines, maybe more than the 10-year deal. Cause you get stuck for 10 years. I mean, if he goes to another place that has a bunch of yahoos running it, and I'm not saying that's what the Cubs have, but
I think they would have to upgrade to Yahoo, I think.
Right. But, so maybe a shorter deal with a bigger, if you're him, just to protect yourself from owners doing stupid stuff.
Well, and it's weird because for the NBA, that became like the thing.
Yeah.
Like that, players were valuing the ability to move. So give me 3 years, $90 million, and then I'll just go somewhere else.
Right.
And then then some agent convinced him, like, no, sign the 8-year deal. And if you don't like it in 3 years, we'll just force a trade. We'll force you to whatever team you want to go to, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
And it was like when Bryce Harper signed his big deal with the Phillies, everybody's like, oh, where's the opt-out? And there wasn't one. He didn't want one. And everybody's like, well, he wants to stay in Philly forever. And it's like, well, he might, but I think he also figures that, no, I'm sure I can get Scott. Scott can get me traded if I don't like it there. And I always think back to the Cubs signing Jason Hayward, and that contract that they signed him for has had a player option after the 3rd year. And that was timed when the Cubs thought, okay, after 3 years of Hayward, this is where we're going to start having to pay Bryant and Rizzo, and I'm sure they were thinking at the time Addison Russell, not Javi, but, that was part of the plan. And it's like he's 26, and he's a great player, and in 3 years, he's going to be able to go cash in for big money. And by, 2 months into the deal, they were like, oh, God, we're going to have to pay all 8 years of this. And they did. So you could have that issue, too. But that's supposed to be one of the benefits of being one of the big market teams, is the ability to paper over your mistake and be like, oh, that didn't work. But you know what? It's not going to bankrupt us, so we'll be fine. But if you act like it does, then it can cripple you. And then somebody's like, well, the timing's not good. If this was a year from now, then maybe the Cubs would be in position to say, well, you don't get to pick the timing on any of this.
No.
Guys become available when they get available. Ask Ricky Renneria. Because here he thought after his plucky 2014 Cubs, he's like, this is fun. And then all of a sudden he had Jed ringing his doorbell in October saying, you're fired. We got Joe Madden because he came available and we didn't expect it. And we can't wait because he's not going to be there.
And now I'm thinking about how the White Sox have done since. And it's kind of a similar but horrific Twilight Zone way.
The White Sox, who've still never given out a $100 million contract in their franchise history.
Jerry holding on for dear life. I'm not going to do it.
So Tony has had to take a little leave of absence. He's on his way to Arizona to have heart tests on his heart. That can't be good.
Doesn't sound good.
And they rallied in his absence last night to lose again.
They did?
All right, win one for Tony. Wait, is he gone? Oh, I guess he's not here. Well, we'll lose anyway. What the hell? And they did.
The whole thing makes me uncomfortable because obviously I don't want to root for a guy to be sick. But it's weird. David Haw actually made a good point for once today saying, I can't believe that the White Sox had Miguel Cairo come out and speak for the organization saying, well, this is what's going on with Tony. And, they didn't bring out Han or Kenny or, Jerry of all people. Although I can see why Jerry doesn't want to get in front of a camera right now. But,
they didn't even tell the players. Players found out on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those are, this weird fundamental breakdowns of the whole entire White Sox organization in the last couple of years. It's like, this is just strange. That's Cubs stuff. Cubs are supposed to do that stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and also you would think they would have this. It could not have been. You have a 77-year-old manager. You would think that you have a process in place in case of something like this.
Right. It shouldn't be a complete surprise.
Every team, regardless of the age of the manager, should have something, a plan, in case something happens to the manager, in case he gets hit by a bread truck on his way to the park, or he gets sick or whatever, or he dies. But especially if you have a 77-year-old one, a guy who hasn't been able to completely close his mouth for the last, 3 years, you think you would have some kind of plan and be like, all right, we got to enact the plan. They seemed completely caught off guard. What happens now?
Right.
To the point where already people are speculating. Well, there was speculation anyway, because I think everybody figures no matter what happens this year, this is it for Tony. But who knows? It's not like Jerry's for sure going to get rid of him.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have counted on that. No.
But people have been speculating about who the next manager would be, and it was John Greenberg, one of the people who pointed out, Cubs third base coach Willie Harris, former White Sox player, and I think coach. Which made me wonder. I wonder if Willie took the White Sox job, how long it would take the Cubs players to know notice that Willie's gone. Because I don't know if you know the thing, Willie does this, and it really annoys me. When he wants a player to slide, he gets down on his belly in the grass.
Yeah, do it like this.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then you can't see him. It's hard. I mean, these players, major leaguers, aren't real good at picking up coaches in the first place. But then if the guy who's supposed to be either waving you or holding you is flat on his face in the grass. So I could see the Cubs for like 3 days be like, wait a minute, Willie's gone? I thought he was just laying. I thought he wanted somebody to slide. I thought he was just face down in the grass again. No, he's coaching the White Sox now. Huh. Oh, well,
That's your cue, though, that Willie wants you to slide when he can't see him.
Why did you slide? I couldn't find you. No.
I thought you were managing the White Sox. I'm very confused. I'm sorry.
All right, so we're gonna you're going to get to enjoy me doing a commercial read.
I'm so excited that we're sponsored.
Yep. I may have already mentioned them inadvertently in this podcast. So the wait is almost over. A new football season is about to begin. Get ready for the NFL Week 1 action with DraftKings, a Casino Queen Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To celebrate the return of football, DraftKings is giving new customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $5 on any football game and get $200 in free bets instantly. Now, I'm no mathematician, but that's like 40 times, right? Carry the 4.
It adds up or multiplies.
Want more action for opening night? Everyone can experience the thrill of DraftKings early win promotion. Get up 7 and you win. What's that mean? That means if you bet on any NFL team of your choice, and if your team leads by 7 points at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. Bears fans, wink, wink. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code POINTLESS to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code POINTLESS. Only at DraftKings, the Casino Queen Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. 21 or older, Illinois only. Bonus issued as free bets. 1 early win token issued at opt-in. Moneyline bets only. Deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at DraftKings.com/football terms. Did you get all that?
I like that you mentioned the early win, former White Sox broadcaster and right-hander.
Yep, I'm sure that's what the guy who wrote the spot meant. Yes. Let's tie it into some 50s baseball.
Well, the Chicago Cardinals played there, so where early win pitched, so it works out.
Should I repeat my interesting uniform factoid for like the 10th time on one of my podcasts? That the reason the Bears wear navy blue and orange is because George Halas got old hand-me-down uniforms from his alma mater, University of Illinois.
Oh, I didn't know the hand-me-down.
And the reason the Cardinals probably were the Cardinals in the first place was they got, although those uniforms would have been maroon, they wore old University of Chicago uniforms.
Oh, wow.
That's how they got their team. That's how the team colors were established. Whatever they could get for free.
That's pretty funny that their NFL teams were getting their stuff from college back in those days, too, just in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, it would shock people today to realize that the NFL until, even in the 60s, was not, it was college football was king.
Right.
The NFL was like this weird carnival sideshow. Back in the 20s and 30s, Red Grange, they were literally barnstorming around the country. Just come look at Red and the 10 dopes that he plays with. So I thought we would peruse. It's time to cross some teams off, I think. Like last year,
not officially, but right?
No, I think officially. I think we have enough clout. We can just cancel the rest of these teams' seasons.
All right.
Last year, when the Cubs gave everybody away, I went through this tortured process of logic, trying to figure out, okay, what team am I going to pick that I'm going to root for in lieu of the Cubs? I ended up with the Giants for a lot of reasons. Mostly, I like Dwayne Kuiper and Mike Krukow, and I don't like the Dodgers, and I like the Giants uniforms.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that. Well, after 107 wins, things are not going so good for the Giants. And they, as we speak, are sitting there at 61 and 68. 29 games out of first. And they have fallen behind the Diamondbacks in the NL West. So I believe this will be the first season in Jock Peterson's career where he does not go to the playoffs.
Wow. Although I guess there's still time for like a waivers.
They just convince him to just cut him. You guys just let me go. I want to latch on with them. I could latch on with the Mariners. They're going. I can go there.
Do you need a team again? That's not really what you were saying just now. That you were, but you. No,
but you're talking about the team. I will tell you the team that I have been. Maybe this is what you were going to suggest. The team I have been watching, and the other thing I like is I like a West Coast team. So I can still watch the Cubs and be like, I can't believe they've lost. And then I'm just like, okay, now before I go to bed, I can watch a good team. And I've been watching the Mariners.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were going to suggest the Mariners?
I was going to suggest the Mariners.
Yeah, they're fun. And I don't know, do you remember this?
Gives him his big contract.
Yeah, there's a big, long, complicated contract. Even Jerry DiPoto admitted that he's like, okay, they showed it to me, I didn't understand it. There's a lot of stuff.
Jerry, didn't you write this? Oh.
It's like, well, the first 4 years are standard, and then after that, he has all these escalators, depending on if he finishes top 10 in MVP, and if he wins Gold Gloves, and if he does other things, it all kicks in. And Jerry was like, it really confused me. So their TV announcer is Dave Sims. Yeah. Now, I have been trying to find a picture. I'm sure Dave wouldn't appreciate this, but I've been trying to find a picture for a long time. You remember when he used to do Big East basketball on ESPN?
Yeah.
And he had the worst toupee I've ever seen.
I can only picture him with a hat, but so I can believe.
Well, then he finally, at some point, doing college basketball is tough to wear a hat. Tough to have the excuse. You could never tell if he put it on like sideways or not. That's how bad this thing was.
Yeah.
And I will give Dave credit. He stopped wearing it 20 years ago probably. And he has somehow expunged every photo of that toupee from the internet. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. Because I want proof that I wasn't crazy. But that he had a horrible tattoo. He had a horrible toupee. I don't know if maybe he was getting when Greg Gumbel would wear it out, he would give it to, like this one seen better days. Dave, do you want it?
Wow, a hand-me-down toupee. That's I don't like that concept.
My wife will occasionally walk through. I'm watching Real Sports, and she remembers Bryant Gumbel is on his name's on the show, and she remembers that he's on there. And same thing every time. Do you think he has a toupee? There's probably some hair sewn in there somewhere, but it's a pretty good one. Unlike Greg, that's probably a pretty good one. So actually, the toupee talk, when I accidentally said tattoo, has reminded me of a couple of things that have happened since the last we talked. The first one being which is not tattoo related, but the second one will be, was Fernando Tatis failing his PED test. He says because he got a fungus from a haircut. And then he took this drug, which sounded like the name of the drug that he tested positive for.
I hadn't heard about the haircut part.
Yes, he claimed he got ringworm from the razor. And then he took this stuff only because of that, and then that's what he tested positive for. So we got that one, but then we also got recent news that former Cub World Series hero Aroldis Chapman is now on the disabled list because of an infection caused by getting a tattoo. And here's the troubling part of that. I now know how many tattoos Keith Olbermann has had in his life.
Wow, that is troubling.
And it's a lot.
How many? Keith Olbermann has gotten a lot of tattoos.
Yes.
I wouldn't have picked.
I mean, it's not a lot. I think did he say it was 6?
Wow.
Like, really? I don't even want to picture where those things are. Because he goes, every time I've gotten one of my 6 tattoos or whatever, I think he said 6, I get like this 11-page how to care for your tattoo document, and you follow it religiously and you don't get an infection. And I'm like, Keith, I didn't know you had one tattoo, and honestly, I don't want to know that you have multiples, and I don't want to think about where they are or what they are. No thanks. The Tatis thing was interesting because it's the rare thing that pissed everybody off. Like, his teammates were mad. Obviously, ownership was mad. The front office was mad. The fans were mad. Usually, you don't hit the that's like it's the triple crown of pissing people off. Because he already had I don't want to get shoulder surgery. I'm just going to ride my dirt bike instead.
Right.
Maybe I'll fall off the dirt bike in just such a way that I'll fix my shoulder. Oh, no, I fell another way, and I've broken my...
Yeah, his name's not Henry Rowan Gardner or whatever.
Yeah. But now because he's out for the rest of this season and part of next. Is that right, or is it all this year?
Yeah. No. And if they make the playoffs next year, I don't think he.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's part of next season, that means he would miss the postseason next year too.
30 games, something like that next year.
Well, he's decided to go ahead and have the surgery. It's like, oh, good.
It was one of the funnier, I mean, not really ha-ha funnier, but just complete 180s in the history of whatever. The guy goes from, I think I got it from ringworm, blah, blah, blah. And then he totally said, well, that's not true. And I'm going to have shoulder surgery. And it was it was funny how he went from denying everything to admitting everything. And it's sad, but funny.
Yeah. I mean, we've had that Padre master plan that looked like they executed, like they won the trade deadline, and
right.
I mean, they have rebounded lately. They've won 7 out of 10. They've won 3 in a row. But their other big trade. Not only did they get Juan Soto, they got
Josh Hader.
I almost called him Bill Hader, which cracked me up in my own mind. Maybe they should have tried that.
It never occurred to me that they have the same name. That's odd.
Yeah.
I usually like to think of that, and I can make my puns and my jokes, but I didn't realize that Bill Hader and Josh Hader had the same name until this moment.
And so Josh he imploded before they got him. To be fair, he had a real rough. He had been on like the bereavement list with the Brewers, came back and got lit up for a few days, and everybody's like, "Yeah, we get it. There's nothing wrong with him. He's going through some stuff. It'll be, And then the Padres got him, and he's been very bad. So that hasn't helped either.
He has been struggling to a degree for a while. I mean, it wasn't just that time right before the trade. It was
right.
It's been going on for a few weeks. Something has.
Well, there are people who can pinpoint it to Seiya Suzuki hitting the inside the park home run off of him.
Oh,
it broke it.
Yeah.
He hasn't been right since. I'm sure that's exactly what did it. But something did. I'm not finding the right thing. Here we go. I mean, the division races, we've done this before. Even though the Yankees haven't been playing, they've been playing bad. I'm going to say they haven't been playing great. They've been playing bad, but they had such a huge lead. It is down to 6.5 over the Rays, but that one still seems pretty safe. Houston is running away with the West, even though the Mariners have the 4th best record in the American League. They're 12 behind Houston. St. Louis, much to my chagrin, has built a comfortable lead over the Brewers. Mostly because the Cubs kept beating the Brewers and then not beating the Cardinals. The Dodgers, it's like they're playing a different sport. They have 90 wins already.
Yeah, something like 40 and 15 since however long ago that is. 55 games, but June.
The best thing is that they are 90 and 39, and you could make a case that they should fire Dave Roberts because they're Pythagorean. They should be 94 and 35. So what the hell is going on with him? They have 45 wins at home and 45 wins on the road. 45 and 16 at home, 45 and 23 on the road.
They're pretty solid. And they get I almost called Clayton Kershaw Oral Hershiser again. It's one of my pre-Alzheimer's moments. I've been doing that for years. Anyway, Oral or Clayton is coming back tomorrow for the finale of the Mets series. So they've been doing this without him.
Yeah. Well, they won't have Walker Buehler back this year or next, looks like.
Yeah.
And they just think, fine, we'll figure it out. How about this? If they lost every road game this year, their record would only be 4 games worse than the A's.
That's quite a cushion.
So the races that are things, the Guardians have a 1-game lead over the Twins, and 5.5 currently over the White Sox. Mets 3 games up over the Braves. That's it. And then we got to go to the wild card, where Toronto is 2 games ahead of the Orioles and 3 games ahead of the Twins in the American League. And in the National League, San Diego has a 2.5 game lead over the Brewers, and that's it. The next team in the who do you think is in? So they got the Braves, the Phillies, and the Padres would be in. The Brewers are 2.5. Who do you think is behind? Is the next team in line in the National League? Unless you're looking at the standings, then you'll know.
I am, but I'm trying not to. It's not the D-backs, is it?
It's the D-backs. That's how good things are in the NL these days.
I mean, they're bringing up Corbin Carroll, who sounds like a 70s comedian or singer or something, but he's their top prospect, one of the better prospects in the league. And they're Arizona's sort of doing a little mini Orioles thing. It's not quite the same thing. They don't really have a chance to make the playoffs, but the future is coming to Arizona. And I like Torey Lovello. He's got a pretty good. He just sounds confident. He's got that, act like you belong. Just sort of, if you walk in with a knowing look on your face and confidence, you can walk in any room in the world.
Well, like the kind of manager who, even when shit goes bad, tells you why they did it, and you're like, I can see that.
Right.
Yeah, that probably should have worked. Yeah, but it didn't. I thought it was funny over the weekend when the Diamondbacks swept the White Sox that one of the guys who did a lot of damage was Alec Thomas.
Yeah.
Who is the son of the former White Sox strength coach back at a time when they were drafting their kid of every employee they could. And they drew the line at the one who could actually play.
Yes.
Like, not your kid.
Oh.
They drafted, whose daughter did they draft?
Ron Schuler's
daughter. No. They drafted Casey Fisk.
Casey Fisk's kid. I don't know if that's
I'm
true.
sure they drafted Kenny Williams' son, but he decided to go drop punts for the Giants or for the 49ers instead.
49ers, yeah. Alec Thomas, no, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, no, we can't do that. We got too good a scouting report on him. They're not drafting that guy. No,
right.
He might actually be able to play. This is supposed to be just for novelty. It makes it funny.
Yes,
we're just doing it to amuse ourselves. We don't want a real
just
player.
Nepotism, that's all.
Yeah, we'd be drafting him on merit. We don't want to do that. The Cubs have taken themselves out of the race for the bottom 4, though. Well, maybe not. Yeah, in baseball, yes. They have no shot anymore. They got too good.
I knew this would happen.
Yeah. I mean, way too many big hits.
What if we slump one more time?
Way too many big hits out of P.J. Higgins. So there was a thing. The guy who is the Alex Cohen is the voice of the Iowa Cubs. And for a while, because P.J. had played really well in Iowa before he came up to the Cubs, and then he got off to a hot start with the Cubs. And for some reason, this guy was adding his stats together and being like, so far this year for Iowa and the Cubs, P.J. is hitting 385 with... It's like, okay, that's not a thing. You don't really get to do that. I've noticed he's stopped because in like the last 30 days, PJ is hitting like 106. He's stopped. The PJ Higgins things cracked me up. As a lot of things, as a small child, one of the first baseball books that I read was the Bob Uecker Catcher in the Rye. And Bob made this whole thing about how the less he played, the better chance he had of getting to come back the next year. Because you get too many at-bats, and they realize you're not any good. And I kept thinking that for, like, PJ. I was thinking, the guy who really shouldn't want them to trade Wilson Contreras is PJ Higgins.
Right.
He wants to be the third-string catcher. What he didn't know was they were just going to say, he can play some first base. So he thought he dodged the bullet with Wilson sticking around. But he's gotten these at-bats, and he hasn't done anything with them. And they're kind of like, oh, maybe he sucks. Yeah, that's too bad. I've also thought that it's the same. There's a similar thing with quarterbacks, like Chase Daniel, who has made all this money in the NFL just being a backup. Right. The reason he's made it is he's never gotten like a real run as a starter.
Right.
And teams will be like, "Oh, Chase Daniel's awful. Ugh, I don't want him." He never gets to prove that.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, he's a great guy. You know, he's a good backup, and he's made a shitload of money doing nothing, all because he lucked out. Like he had to play 3 games in a row for the Bears." The year after they made the playoffs, and by the 3rd game, you're like, oh no, he's bad. But then Mitch came back and saved him, and he's still in the league. Congratulations. So the playoffs, I thought, I'm wrong a lot.
They did change him.
So did they change it? Because I thought originally what they were going to do with the 3-game, for people who are unfamiliar, there are 5 playoff teams in each league.
I thought it was 6.
Aren't there? Oh, you're right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 6. But the way they did it, you're right. The way they did it, they had 6 playoff teams in the COVID year. And the way they did it was everybody played these little 2 out of 3 series. So there were 3 of those. They're not doing that this time. This time they are taking the 2 division winners with the best records in each league, and they get a bye. And then the division winner with the 3rd best record, Cardinals, get mixed in then with the wild card teams.
Right.
And what I thought originally, home field advantage meant you got all 3 games. But that's not the case. They are traveling to game 3. Is that right? Yes.
You know what? This I'm not sure about.
Yes. So home field advantage is the first 2 games. Your advantage is you win them both at home, you're done. You move on.
Right.
But if you lose one of those, now you have to go win the decisive game at the lower seed. And apparently because they're trying to, baseball is, we want more playoff teams, but we don't want the playoffs to last longer. Like TV gives us this window, and we have to cram all the games in it. They want more inventory, but they don't want to give us more time. So there's like 1 day between and they'll claim this is a good thing because this will help with even better for the advantage of having one of the 2 best records is not only does that team play, but they only get 1 day off before they come play you. Because they were talking about, well, what if you end up having to play the Mariners, and then your game one of your ALDS is against the Yankees? You're going to basically spend your off day humping it across the country, getting to your first real playoff game.
Right.
So I guess that's the penalty. And that's really why I thought the original plan, and the reason I get confused is these were the things they were like throwing out during the lockout negotiations. And they would change. And I thought the original plan was to reward the home field by, you just get all 3 games. And there's no travel and there's no days off. You're going to play 3 games and then we're going to go. But apparently they are going to travel to the lower seeded team for the final game. And there was a time, and the Cubs were part of this, where in the best of 5s, well, no, that wasn't true. I was going to say that the Cubs had home field in '84, but had to go play the Padres. I think that's wrong. Now that I say it out loud, it's good that I say it out loud first.
Are you?
I think it was predetermined that the West was going to have those second 3 games, no matter what the record was.
Are you thinking about the stipulation of not having lights at Wrigley Field changing how they did the playoffs?
So we talked about we talked about that on Remember This Crap. That was going to kick in '85.
I think a lot of people think that was why the '84 series ended in San Diego.
Right, but it didn't. It was originally planned. And honestly, it would have been better for TV for the Cubs to have had the weekend games.
Sure.
Because it would have been more natural to have, more people could have watched the day games had they been the Friday, Saturday, Sunday than the Tuesday, Wednesday. Although it was the Cubs, and the pure novelty of it, I'm sure, drove pretty decent ratings for 2 day games. Yeah, that didn't affect it. But so Peter Ueberroth became commissioner after the Olympics in '84, and he was the one who said if the Cubs make it in '85 and they don't have their damn lights, they were going to have. The Cubs weren't going to get home playoff games. Do you know where they were going to send them for the playoffs?
I don't remember.
They were going to send them to Busch Stadium. Imagine that. They said it was because that was the closest National League park. The Cubs would have had
that, like National American League.
But it's weird how many things used to happen because the leagues were separate.
Yeah, they have a little bit of their own autonomy.
It was like, and we find all this crap out, and we're doing Remember This Crap. Like, we figured out, Remember This Crap, that the only reason the Pirates didn't get to draft Ken Griffey Jr. first overall was because that was still back in the time, because they had the worst record in baseball. They had a worse record the year before than the Mariners did. But that was back when they were still alternating the first pick. It was the American League's turn to get the number 1 pick. So instead of the Pirates, who already had Barry Bonds, picking Ken Griffey Jr., they had the second pick instead of the first, even though they had the worst record. They used to do crazy shit like that all the time.
Right.
And I remember even when Bud was commissioner, and there was the whole, why don't we just have best record determine home field in the World Series? And he gave this ridiculous answer about how, well, no, we can't because we have to book all the hotel rooms in advance, and we can't get that many.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you don't know which team is going to win. You have to book 2 sets anyway. You might as well book 4. Because that was the whole, and actually you wouldn't. You'd be able to tell by the matchups. Like, okay, well, we know this. No matter, if the 4th best record is a National League team, you don't have to book any rooms for that in that city. They're going to be the road team in the World Series because they have the worst record of the 4 remaining teams.
Right.
They were already doing it for 2. You couldn't have done it for 3. So for years they had to limp along with the Now it's their turn to host. That's how the Twins won 2 World Series because of that.
Yeah.
Just because of they lucked out and they got to host it that year. Yeah, just a lot of crazy dumb stuff that they replaced it with new crazy dumb stuff, but there was old crazy dumb stuff.
Yeah. That should be Bud's nickname. His non-Bud nickname. Crazy dumb stuff. Seelig.
So the other thing that we got this week is they released the schedules for next year. And it's all different this year because now everybody plays everybody. So instead of, say, the Cubs playing for their interleague games, all the teams in the American League West, plus the White Sox.
Right.
Every 2 years you will have home games against every team in the league. Because the American League teams you get this year at home, next year you'll get the other half. But I noticed one precious thing was kept, and that is the Cubs still have 2 series with the White Sox.
Hooray.
They're only 2 games each, so they only play 1 extra game against the White Sox than against anybody else. But it's all because of that's a Jerry Reinsdorf production too. After the first few years of interleague, the whole thing was like, look, it's ridiculous. We shouldn't be doing full home and homes between your rivals. And Jerry's like, no, I need the sellouts. Basically, those were 3 guaranteed sellouts for the White Sox at a time when they weren't getting them. And he had enough clout with his buddy Bud that they kept it in. And even with Bud completely out of the picture, the Cubs still have to go play every year 2 games on the South Side. Now, the idea supposedly is it's fairer for the wild cards now because everybody's playing roughly the same schedule. You just don't play with yourself.
Giggle. If I'm a player, I would rather just play in the one city. I'd eliminate the travel day because, home field advantage can mean something in baseball, but a lot of times it doesn't.
Right.
And I would just rather, if you build up the momentum or the confidence or whatever you want to call it of winning one of the first 2 games, it doesn't matter when the third game's played. Just get to it and be done. And that way you can say, well, the higher seed had the home field advantage or the possible advantage of a home field advantage. It's less travel. It would be cheaper. Just play the series. I think that's fine. But I'm also somebody who, I enjoy the playoffs, but it's not like I look at them and go, well, that's, they were the best team and that's why they won. It's just 2 or 3 random games in a series, and that's fine. But
it feels to me like we'll travel all the way across the country to play this third game is a vestige of a time that doesn't exist anymore, like in the 80s when parks were really different and teams literally built their teams around their park.
Yeah. And
there could be a big advantage. Like there was an advantage for the Cardinals to play at Busch Stadium as opposed to playing at like Wrigley,
right.
Where at a day when the wind was at least mildly blowing out, they were going to be at a disadvantage because, unless you let Vince Coleman, hit the ball to second and then throw it up in the air and hit it again, he wasn't going to hit a home run.
Right.
And it
almost
or
feels how
like,
you mentioned with the Twins in the Metrodome.
Right. If you like playing in a place where it sounds like there's a jet engine going off right behind your head for 3.5 hours, this is the place for you. You're right at home. Where they're turning the air conditioning on when they're batting and turning it off when they're not.
That's allegedly, sir.
If they did it to beat the Cardinals, I'm all for it. That's fine. But now, parks are, Yankee Stadium has the right field wall is like right behind the second baseman, but both teams get to hit at that. so that's fine.
Right.
There really isn't. There's not a huge advantage. Like Colorado is still. It's just more weird than anything. It was funny. I was talking about last year. I adopted the Giants as my team for the rest of that 1 year, and Dwayne Kuiper he appears on his son's podcast, this Giants Talk podcast, and Dwayne will no longer. Not only will he not go to Colorado to announce games there, he doesn't watch them. He goes, I just pretend they're not happening. He goes, I got tired of it. He goes, that's not baseball. And it's really interesting to me because for 2 years, we think of Dwayne Kuiper as this the voice of the Giants ever since he retired playing for the Giants. But there were 2 years he was not the Giants announcer. He was the Rockies announcer. And apparently he really had his fill of it. And he was just saying, he's like, I'm at an age right now where I can just say, I'm just going to ignore those 9 games. I don't want to go. I don't want to sit through them. I don't want to watch them. I don't do anything. Tell me when they're over, and then we'll get on with the rest of it. That just cracks me up. But yeah, I can't think of any team that really has a home field advantage anymore based on their park.
Yeah, if we're keeping an eye on the Astros, they don't. Maybe anybody can hit it into the crawfish boxes, and
I mean, you can bang on a garbage can anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the
right.
Yeah.
I don't know, Tampa. Maybe Tampa because it's reputedly so hard to see in there. It's kind of, you got bad vision. Maybe you get used to that more if you play there more often. Toronto, it's got the people in the hotel having sex.
They're out of the hotel now. They're just right up in the back row of the 500 section now.
Right.
They had quite a sexy week in baseball. They had the 2 fans that got busted in Oakland, and then they had the fans a couple nights ago in Toronto.
Not a lot of cover in Oakland.
No. And I don't know if you noticed that the next day, some fans went up and were sitting like around that seat with hilariously awful signs. They're like sitting around like, hey, A's, don't blow this. And it was really funny. The one, I felt bad for the young lady in Toronto the other night because her and her male companion were thrown out of the park, and it's like she had just as many pants on as the Cubs mascot typically does.
Yes.
If Clark can run around pantsless, why can't a fan? Seems like an unfair double standard.
It's not. Do you want? You kind of want Clark to wear pants, but it does take away something when he's got pants on.
Well, he's got a shirt on and a hat.
Well, that's.
If we're going for accuracy of animals, he shouldn't be wearing any clothes. Then he should just be running around, and he should be instead of hugging little kids and signing autographs, he should be trying to rip their face off.
It's much more likely that a bear could put on a shirt than it is pants.
That's true. Or he should go Yogi Bear, which is you don't even wear the shirt, you just wear the collar and the tie.
And the tie, yeah.
Right. Really class it up. Neat. I knew it was going to happen. Now, when the Cubs first got Clark, the big deal was he was never going to be in the park, or at least once the game started, you'd never see Clark. He'd run around on the field before, but then Wrigley's not big enough to have a crazy mascot run around, and there's a lot of Clark creepage. He's around too much now. Right. It's got worse. Although my single favorite thing with Clark ever is he has this his little fan club, and it's called Clark's Crew.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like the way Jim Deshaies says it every time, which is Clark's Crew. He says it every time, Clark's Crew. And when Clark, I know as a person who was around a minor league mascot, and the ridiculous lengths they would go to. when Snappy would go to like a school or whatever, they never wanted the kids to see Snappy without the head. They didn't want to blow the illusion. So the poor person would have to they have to hide him or her somewhere while they put the suit on. And, so I completely lost my train of thought is where I was going with this.
Snappy out in public?
Oh, no. I know where I was going. So Clark has a van that they take him to his events in. It's literally a windowless white van.
Come on.
I've got pictures of it. And it's like just the whole... Kids, do you want to get in the windowless van with the bear? He'll give you some candy. It's like, what are we doing?
The pantsless bear.
The Clarks, you want to get in the Clark screw van? There's no windows. Everything in there. What happens in the van stays in the van.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. All right, with that happy thought, I think we'll probably have exhausted all of our topics.
Well, it was a good run.
It was. All right, well, until next time.
Thanks, Andy. See you then.
Thanks.
Many of us have herpes.